Guys, what's the creepiest thing a girl has said? Viewer edition. Hey folks, quick content warning for this story. This has basically a stalker making claims about self-termination, self-harm, assault, and doing a lot of emotional abuse and trauma. And whether or not any of it's true, if you find this an uncomfortable topic, you may want to go to the time code on screen, and that will take you to story number 2. Story 1. I met the creepiest woman on the planet, though in hindsight I'm not sure she was even a woman. We met on this site online and started talking through it regularly, moved to email, then phone within a month or two. We did talk to each other, and she sounded female for the record, but she asked me out and I agreed. But when I started to ask to video chat with her or meet up, I kept getting excuse after excuse. She had sent me a bunch of different pictures, by the way, and I realized she'd catfished me even though reverse searching her images did not give any results. I still realized several of the pictures she claimed was her was people that did look a lot alike, but were still entirely different girls. It wasn't until I basically dumped her and told her to leave me alone that crap went crazy and insane. She tried to tell me she was pregnant, told me it was my kid because she was breaking into my house at night and drugging me and basically assaulting me. She told me later, though, that she met my real father, who I never lived with and is honestly a piece of crap, but she claimed she was pregnant with his child because he forced himself on her. She kept calling and texting me so much it would brick my phone for hours from the notifications. Didn't matter if I blocked her number or changed my own because she somehow always found my new number within minutes and could change her number in even less time. Sometimes she would call me back to back from dozens of different numbers in a row. I ended up having to literally not have a phone for 3 years to get her to stop, because when I kept ignoring her, she somehow found and called every single one of my family and friends I had ever had. I told them all kinds of BS lies and sick crap, and was even calling all times of night and day to F with them. She spent an entire day once sending my grandmother random D-pics from online. She started to call the cops and tell them I was considering self-termination and have them do welfare checks on me. She even once, nearly a year after I last spoke to her, had cops show up to my place because she told them I had kidnapped our daughter. I had never had kids, but it made me wonder what if I had, what those cops would have done, because they refused to leave until I let them look through my house for any children. She also took my mugshot from online and wrote a bunch of fake news articles that honestly look kind of legit, barring only where she posted them to, WordPress and crap like that, where she claimed I was a serial killer, aurist, pedo, and wrote stories like I was being arrested for these crimes. Dozens of them, so that even if I contacted and went through the hassle of proving she was using my photos and name to make up slander and libel about me, she would have 2 more on different sites. But even to this day, Googling my name shows some of these posts she made about me with my real name and real picture attached. Oh, about a month into us dating, too, she sent me these really grainy photos of a bloody V during intercourse and claimed to me that it was a photo of her that her brother took because he had just R'd her. She claimed her father was abusing her too and told me she had cystic fibrosis, but she would also pretend to be her own relatives like her brother and father, where she would have them admit to me the claims she was telling me, like them assaulting her and talking crap to me about it like they were bragging. She also would pretend to be other girls sometimes and message me trying to be flirty, sending photos and crap like she was testing me if you would cheat. She pretended to even be her own mother and was flirting with me too. She got me fired from 3 different jobs and had me turned down from an application and interview to another because they had Googled me and saw the crap she posted about me. She also tried to tell my mother was effing her uncle, but she would also send me self-harm photos when I would ignore her, claiming she was cutting herself or about to kill herself. Oh, she also sent me a picture of an aborted child and told me it was our baby. Literally, I dealt with crap like this for 3 years. She even harassed literally every single person I've ever known when I ignored her for a year. Every single day. She caused my father and his wife to divorce because she told her he had R'd her and was cheating on her, and it turns out he was cheating anyway, and that came out, because as I said, he was always a POS, but I literally don't know how she did half the crap she did. We only spoke for 6 months, maybe, before I tried to end it, and it still took 3 years before she gave up effing with me, and 2.5 of those years were without me so much as sending her a single letter of correspondence. I don't know how she had the free time to do all this for so long, nor how she always found my new numbers and even my addresses, because she sent cops to my place numerous times, but she had to have been using a voice changer and a computer to get all those phone numbers and so on to call me and text me hundreds of times an hour. I had my phone off once, and when I cut it back on, it took an entire day, no joke, a full 24 hours plus, before I was able to use it. This sounds like an extremely messed up person, and I don't know what to say to all of that. It sounds hard to believe, but at the same time, there are some real messed up people out there doing messed up things, and so I'm going to default to believing you and saying I'm sorry that you went through anything like that. And for anyone going through something like this, call the police, find out anything that you can do. I know it doesn't always help, but I feel like you got to do something and protect yourself, because the whole time reading this, I felt like this could have gone, suddenly violent or whatever at the drop of a hat, and you shouldn't take any risks. Story 2. Maybe not that creepy, but for me, it was working hard setting up Christmas displays at my grocery store. This girl, who was a couple years younger than me, working behind the service counter, started staring at me and watching me as I went back and forth building displays. She suddenly called out to me after about 10 minutes of unbroken stares, saying, "I like watching you work. You're such a hard worker." But she said this with a bit of a flirty smirk and tone. Might have enjoyed the comment if it wasn't for the fact that she, 1, had a boyfriend, and 2, enjoyed falsely accusing guys of harassment. 3 guys had previously lost their jobs thanks to her. A month later, she was fired after admitting to falsely accusing the male coworkers, and I just happened to be one of her next marks. Yeah, honestly, even just stuff like that at work and everything, someone trying to say something like that, like on the clock while you're working, that can come across pretty creepy. So even if this person didn't have ill intentions, not something that I would advise folks to necessarily do. Story 3. It's not creepy, but it's disturbing. I was with a group of friends, and the question was, who would be the worst boss at work? We all pointed to her because all agreed she is overly nice and very indecisive. I once saw her spend a whole hour contemplating whether to put a single pair of multicolored socks in the laundry. But when we all pointed to her, she said she couldn't understand why, because every time had tried to make a decision herself, her parents would, "You have to stop that now, name. You are thinking too much on your own." Interpret that as, she can't think without her parents' permission. Story 4. Story 39 from the original video really resonates with me. About 3 years ago, a girl, I made friends with her at work, and I used to hang out a bit at the mall, at an arcade, etc. But then her boyfriend broke up with her, and I lent her a shoulder to cry on because I was her gay best friend. She went through a heartbreak phase, which is normal, and I expected it. But then she went through what I like to call a hoe phase, where she kind of basically tried to find a rebound, I guess. At first, I was like, "Yas, queen, get into it." And then things kind of started getting weird. She started saying things that felt off toward me, like, "If you were straight, I'd totally hit you up," and "Have you ever wondered what it'd be like with a girl?" I would laugh them all off, but these comments were extremely uncomfortable for me. Eventually, she left the job, and we kind of haven't hung out in a while, like 6 or 7 months. It wasn't on bad terms, per se, but I was beginning to grow anxious around her. Story 5. A girl once asked me if she could spend the night at my place after her first date with her boyfriend of 4 years while I was out of town on a family trip. When I told her no because I'm not in town, she asked 7 more times throughout the day, to which I didn't even respond. Then drove in front of my house around the block for 4 hours waiting for me. Then started calling me again, demanding that I let her stay or else we wouldn't be friends anymore. Needless to say, I cut all contact with her, and she's resorted to stalking me for 8 years. Story 6. My ex-girlfriend had just married another guy 2 months prior before she contacted me with this message on Facebook. "I only married him because I thought you were lying about that funeral. Please take me back." Yeah, no.
When she dumped me over the phone and yelled her head off at me for not being able to travel to her, she lived far away, and look at apartments together, according to her brother, whom I'm still in contact with, she had left her kids at his house and gone to a friend of their family and banged him that same night. They got married after just 6 months together. From what I've also heard from her brother is that someone had contacted her and put that lie in her head. I don't care who, since she acted so insanely impulsive.
I mean, what the hell? Even, like, to marry someone because you thought your boyfriend was lying about going to her funeral? That is not healthy. This person clearly needs some therapy to learn about their own self-worth and work on some trust issues and everything, because holy smokes, that's not a good reaction to stuff like that. You need to have some trust in a relationship, folks, and if you don't, you need to start asking some questions.
Story 7. Oh, joy, I've got a couple of stories. Story 1. So in college, there was this girl in one of my history classes. She was really cute and we got along well. Important for later. She was a physically large person, 6'1" with long legs and very muscular with a distinct profile. I asked her out and she politely declined and we continued to be friends. One weekend, I went to a festival in my hometown and told no one, literally no one, not even my roommate. Just disappeared and reappeared. That Tuesday in class, she asked me how the festival was by name. I mentioned that I hadn't told her where I was going the past weekend, let alone never telling her where I lived, and she just giggled nervously and walked away. That summer, when I was working outside, a green truck pulled up along the edge of the road one day. We get nature spotters, so I didn't think too much of it at first. But I felt uneasy. Stalker Girl had a green truck like it, and I was a bit paranoid. So I stopped working to take a good look, and the profile of the girl sitting in the cab looked like her. I started to walk over, and she started the engine and sped off. Haven't seen nor heard from her since. Story 8. All right, story number 2. After Stalker Girl, I took some time just away from people in general. I ended up bumping into a girl in the college library in the horror section looking for a copy of Dracula. We talked for a bit and ended up bonding over a shared interest in macabre and horror in general. In hindsight, I can see where this was going. Fast forward a bit and we are dating. Once a week, we'd have a movie night where we'd take turns sharing our favorite horror movies, most of them really crappy ones, lol. But as the weeks progressed, when I went over to her place, the horror movies on display began to grow more intense. B-movie horror to grindhouse to splatterhouse, you kind of get the point. One night I go over and the DVDs are all in plain cases with some paper slipped in or Sharpie, and they had really strange, vague names. She excitedly asked me to pick one and I just grabbed a random one. Can't remember the title, but it seemed really unrelated to horror. Put it in the player and sat down next to her. She cuddled up to me and we started watching. To start off, it seemed like a rip of an old Splatterhouse movie until it wasn't. Unfortunately, early on in my life, I witnessed a violent accident, so I know the difference between real and fake. What we were watching wasn't fake. I just kind of sunk into the chair, starting to panic. What made it worse was she was cuddling up closer. She kissed me on the cheek and seductively said, "Look at all the blood." Full-blown panicking now, I shot out of the chair, muttering something incoherent, and ran out the door. Story 9. Heard a girl talking in class with her friends. By what me and my friend heard of the conversation and some rumors, the girl got pregnant and had an abortion for the 5th or 6th time. And later, they are all talk of it's my body, my decision, and how could we know how to take care of ourselves for not getting pregnant if we don't know how? Those idiots go to a private college, and not only that, contraceptive methods are always talked about in class and by her friends. Also, the public hospitals give free condoms, and that idiot just doesn't get how not to have a baby. They argued that for getting to the public hospital, they need money for transportation, and even so, they could have just screw when it's not a dangerous day, or simply stop screwing for both the sake of the kid and yours. It's honestly infuriating that she's killing so much babies just because she's an irresponsible idiot.
Well, first off, it's a good thing that she wasn't killing any babies. She was just getting rid of fetal tissue that, wasn't thinking or anything yet, getting an abortion, which is her right and should be everyone's right. But Also, this, like, you say, oh, it should be so obvious they're in a private college. Where do they go to school? Because you know what? There are so many places where schools do not teach proper intercourse education, where they just teach abstinence only, where they ignore educating people on all this stuff, or try and tell them about how, oh, it's not actually that effective, so you can't. There are so many factors to take into account. So I do not necessarily think that this person is an irresponsible idiot. She might just be, unfortunately, the product of a bad system. So mind your own business and get over yourself.
Story 10. So this one isn't a naughty story, but there is some context here. This girl, a good friend of mine, was well-intentioned but prone to odd, though usually harmless behavior, like printing 99 copies of a Dungeons & Dragons character sheet because she needed one and liked the buttons on the printer. Now, for separate reasons, I was not mentally firing on all cylinders at the time this took place. So, it's winter, specifically December, sometime in high school. I'm driving my brother home so I can take my friend to a place to celebrate someone's birthday party. Along the way, the other gal in the car is messing with my music, and this girl, for some reason, decides to ask me, "What do you think about the inevitability of death?" No prompting. Okay, that's off-putting, but far from the strangest thing any of that friend group had done. But wait, we aren't done. So let's talk about what snow and ice does to roads, especially ones with distracted high school newbie drivers on them. Short answer, not 10 seconds later, I crashed the car into a stopped person in front of me. Fortunately, I'm not a complete idiot, even if my brain shuts off in those situations. I managed to make sure nobody got hurt. It wasn't really the statement itself, but when we joked about it later on, it definitely felt like she manifested that crash. Story 11. Oh man, I never thought passive trape threats to men from women are so common. I thought it was just me. I picked up a girl in a bar. I was getting some subtle hints of crazy in her, but I thought it was just the effects of alcohol and ignored it. Went to her place, did the deed pretty normally, and slept. Next morning, I woke up with both my hands and legs handcuffed in one of those pink furry cuffs. She had woken up me by tickling my feet. As soon as she saw me open my eyes, she said, "What if I just trapped you all day today? You can't run away and no one would know." Listening to these words with no context as soon as you wake up with your hands tied can easily freak out anyone regardless of gender. So I got freaked out. Fortunately, the cuffs were very weak and cheap plastic ones, so they broke with just a few pulls. I got up, dressed up, and freaked out as soon as I could. All the while she was saying, "Oh, calm down, I was just joking, I wasn't serious," and stuff like that. So folks, it's coming from experience. Never stick your D in crazy.
I will say, I'm sure there are many people who would be very much into this kind of intimate play, but you do need to have those talks and have that open communication about it. You don't spring this on someone that you've just met unless you are absolutely certain that they are into it, which you would only know by having communication. So, yeah, I don't necessarily think that this person is crazy. I've known people who would probably be into that kind of stuff. But yeah, you gotta know a person, and you've gotta kind of clear it with them first, because with all things intimate, consent is pretty important.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.